Someone in. All right. Well, I'll go ahead and do a quick intro for everyone. Thanks for everyone for joining today. Today I have Demetria Vlahos, psychic medium, to chat about her experience workshop that she'll be doing at the July 21st Spiritual WTF Experience. Her workshop is at 11 a.m. And that is titled "Understanding and Developing Your Psychic Senses." So, thank you, Demetria, for being here. I'm happy to have you today to chat and banter along.
Yeah, thanks, Aaron. And thank you so much for facilitating these events. Growing up in the area for a long time, there was nothing like this that was available. And so to have something local in my hometown is like, it's amazing. So I'm very grateful for the work you're
Oh,
doing.
of course, thank you. Thank you for saying that. I've actually gotten that a lot more than I expected to, because I've done events, as I think I told you earlier. I've done events for what 15 years, and finally the universe was like, you got to do events in the spiritual world, and that's kind of where my passions have always been. So instead of going and doing all this work for large corporations, it's like I want to do something that's gonna like make a change. But I didn't realize like the effect that it was going to have, because so many people have come up to me and be like, we need this, thank you so much for holding the space and creating a space for people to come and learn and just be.
Yeah,
So it's definitely a little bit of a shift for me to just like accept that. So thank you so much for saying that. And I'm going to do my best to kind of keep them going, and I have other ideas, and I can hopefully push those through now that I've finished my move and all the craziness that's been going on this past month. So
totally.
thank you.
Yeah.
But so my first question, I always ask everyone this because this is my favorite question, and it definitely goes along with the theme of spiritual WTF. So, what was your WTF moment into the spiritual world that made you realize like, wow, like psychic senses are real? I can see this information that's coming to me from some other random place is it, and what made you want to kind of get out there as well to help people heal and use those gifts to help.
Whew. Yeah. So I'll preface this by saying I kind of got slapped in the face really intensely with all of this spontaneous psychic phenomenon. And prior to that, I had no context. I was
There you go.
working my job, I had ambitions to be a business owner. It wasn't on my radar at all, never even a thought. And then actually, I was at work in my office, and that's when it began, where
Ooh.
this physical and psychic phenomenon was just like boom. Um, and that lasted really intensely for the better half, about 2 weeks. And during that time, I couldn't process that frontal cortex logical aspect of my mind was being overridden by other aspects of my psyche. And so it wasn't, so that entire poignant 2 weeks was definitely my, like, what
Yeah,
was that?
yeah, that's awesome.
And then once my logic turned back on, I was like, okay, well, now it's time to figure out what the fuck was that.
Right.
And then I went into some really deep rabbit holes, and had to understand the psychic phenomenon and metaphysical phenomenon I abruptly began to experience. So all of that was my WTF moment, and it really completely changed my life. Yeah.
That's and do you does because you're a medium, right? Is that connected to mediumship? Because I know a lot of people who are mediums, they tend to have kind of that slap in the face experience. Whether it's like there's a entity, ghost, spirit, whatever you want to call it, that's right there, like in their face, or something like you've said. I've heard that before as well. So do you think it has to do with that?
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I would love to chat with other mediums that have had that experience. I've never met somebody who has. For me, in my experience, it was all of the above at the same time. So I've always kind of been empathic, but I was really empathic to other people's thoughts and feelings and emotions. I was also, my clairvoyance popped online, and I was seeing auras on people and seeing entities and orbs, and became hyper sensitive to all energy around me. So it was, yes, it was entities, it was energy, it was kind of all of these things at the same time.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I haven't had an experience that intense. I would love to, but I think my path is a little different, and I probably need to shed some weight that I have. But that's a really cool story. I really like that. So with that, like, do you believe that? You know, I have a belief on this as well. But do you believe everyone has a gift, or is it just certain people are gifted to have psychic senses, use their abilities, connect to other realms, so what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's interesting to me when I hear people say, when the word gifts, for me, I don't necessarily consider it a gift. I kind of look at it like an aptitude or anything else, where somebody might be born and they're born to be a basketball player, or somebody might be born a musician. You can have these born talents, and yet you still have to train and develop them. So that being said, the same is true for psychic development. From my perspective, you can be born with these innate abilities and be like, oh, natural, boom, boom, like how you were sharing with me earlier, where it was just
Yeah.
like wham, bam, on it, on it, on it. Or if you have an inkling to pursue this type of work, you can very much work out these psychic muscles, train them, and approach it that way. Um, so I always, yeah. So to answer your question, I would say yes. If everybody who has interest in this type of work could absolutely develop their abilities. And for whatever reason, I don't see it as gifts, because there are um, step by step framework that you can follow to develop. Um,
Right.
so yes, I think anybody, people will be more inclined or more called to this type of work than some other, you know. But yeah, I think if anybody is interested, they 100%. And everybody too, I'll say, everybody who's human, we're constantly using our psychic abilities. We're just not consciously aware. And so,
I would agree.
so psychic work, psychic development is essentially making the unconscious conscious. Um, so yeah,
Yeah.
I hope that answers.
No, I would agree. And yes, you know what, I agree with you on that gifts is not necessarily the proper word. Because as I think you had no, actually someone reached out to me about doing some work the other day, because I'm recently just got back into the field after 5 years or 6 years of not doing any sort of spiritual work other than like hosting events and maybe some quick readings for friends and things. But when I was out there, someone came up and I just started talking to them, and they had some certain questions about family, and I was answering them. And afterwards, I was like, wow, I was like, I guess I still got it. Like, it wasn't anything that really ever left. It's like once you connect and you're in it, you're in it. And it was more of like, the more I'm doing things, the more I'm realizing that it's always kind of been there. I'm just, just like when you work out, which I haven't done, but when you physically work out, your muscles grow, so same thing when you're starting to use your abilities, you start to, that muscle grows and you're starting to learn it more. So I definitely agree with that. And I probably should stop saying gifts. I like that. It's just our own innate abilities, and it's just honing in on them, and kind of figuring out where that fits for us. So
Totally.
I would agree with that. So, so in terms of like psychic abilities and stuff, I don't know if you want to say this from your experience or just from what you think, but like in terms of benefits for people who may not be developing these abilities, or may not be aware that they have them, what would you say is like the benefit for them to start doing that and start working with their own gifts and developing it?
Yeah, that's a really, really good question. Uh, I, I would say one of the biggest benefits is gaining self-awareness. And then that really translates into all aspects of your life. And so I think whatever benefits come with being more self-aware, which I think the benefits are abundant in
Mm-hmm.
all aspects of our life. I see development directly correlating with personal development, because it's a part of who we are. And so there's many benefits that come to that. That's one way to answer the question. And then there's more practical ones where it's like, okay, where are my keys? or, oh, where did I lose
Yes.
that? It's like, okay, let me try to tune in. Kind of hard when for me at least, hard, tricky when I'm doing it for myself, versus when I'm in a session with another person.
Yeah, yeah.
But there's though where it's just like, okay, where did I put that, or where is this?
That's a great one. I've done that before with one of my friends. I forgot what they lost, but I just was like, okay. I took a deep breath and I said, it's somewhere around the couch. As you look around the couch, I was like in the couch, somewhere in the couch, and they found it like underneath, hidden in the back or something. So that's a great one because you can use it to kind of help guide you with stuff. There's also been times in my past where I remember I was like, universe, just guide me to, I'm looking for this, just guide me to something that's going to help with it. And like, I was walking through a store and for randomly, like, and it's funny because it wasn't like I was choosing to, but I was just like walking and somebody was actually like in my way. So I was like, I'm going to turn this aisle. And that was exactly what I was looking for, like 2 steps in. So,
Yeah.
yeah, that I would agree. The other thing actually I was thinking of as you were talking is it feels like for me, it's like, at least developing your senses and maybe just even getting readings is like a form of therapy.
Yeah.
Because I will go and I've gone to my psychics or intuitives or guides, and I would tell them, I did this actually to a mutual friend, Cynthia, that we were talking about earlier. I used to go to her when I was first, starting to develop my abilities, and I was like, okay, I need an ass kicking, and I would just be like, tell me what it is, tell me what I need to work on, and through like readings for me at least, it's definitely helped too. And from my own guidance as well. It's funny too because when you're getting your own guidance, it'll tell you something sometimes that you're like, I don't like that answer, and so, but it's you giving it, so it's also like you can't get mad at somebody else. You can't, you know, argue it. I think so. I think that's therapy, at least for me. That's mine. I've never really gone to therapy, but the readings is my form, and I'm very analytical. So it's I'm like shifting and changing as well.
Totally. Yeah. There's something about a benefit to receiving psychic readings from somebody adept and someone that you trust.
Yeah.
That's very important. It really gets to the root of things very quickly. With this could go into an entirely different topic in conversation, but when you're able to hone in on something and really get into that root cause, everything else just shifts from that. And
Mm-hmm.
it's, as you said, therapeutic, healing. It can really make profound changes in people's lives.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I would definitely agree. I mean, I feel like everything that's kind of happened in my life and all the shifts that I've made for the better probably wouldn't have happened if like I wasn't I didn't go to somebody for guidance that's like this is what spirit's saying, this is what you're messing up on, and of course I'm like, oh, that's so true. Okay,
Yeah.
that's the step I need to make, and if you go and to get readings, if you go to the right person, usually they'll kind of give you like homework or guidance or be like, this is the next step, rather than just saying, oh well, this is what I'm seeing. They're like, no, but this is what you can do to get to the other side of the problem, or and of course there's like comes with just healing as well and acknowledging your faults and things like that. So I think yeah, there's a lot. This could go on a whole other topic actually.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah. Good for you for going for that and wanting that ass kicking when you go to see your people and being ready for receptive to that information.
yes,
Because truth can be a hard pill to swallow sometimes, and so good for you for wanting that, let's get straight to the point and
yes.
you're ready for it.
Thank you. That is true. And there have been times where I've gotten a message. Oh my God. I remember one time I got a message and I was like, okay. And I just like, I didn't like, it didn't sit well with me. And I was like, okay. And I kind of held my composure. When I got home and I like thought about it, it made me angry because I was like, I did all this work and like, I didn't really get anywhere. And I was just, but I think that was also good for me to have that anger because I got mad and I was probably mad for a good 2 or 3 days. And the more I thought about it, the more I was just very angry. And then afterwards, I was just like, why am I getting so angry about it? Like, that's right. I obviously wasn't, doing what I needed to do, or at least, yeah, what I needed to do, but I did what I thought I needed to do. So it was just very eye opening for me because after I got angry, I just like, it was like a release. So the anger was kind of good to kind of go through those emotions. And then I kind of had to come back to reality and say like, okay, well, obviously I need to do a little more, or I need to, take a different step because what I thought I was doing wasn't necessarily the right direction. So I had a lot of those moments, but there was one particularly that happened. I remember that just kind of like made me so mad. But anyway, I digress. I know I can go off onto that topic as well. So in terms of like when it comes to development and stuff, I think actually I'll ask you, what are like the common misconceptions that people might have from your experience in terms of like developing their gifts and or excuse me, their abilities and senses?
Yeah, good question. One thing I would say, there's a lot of fear that circulates this work.
Yeah.
And I think 100% of that fear comes from, well, like the unknown is a big one. People just don't understand, don't know. And so that kind of automatically defaults to fear. So
Yeah.
fear. Um, and I think also movies kind of had a part to play that also, Hollywood. It's just not really realistic in how we've seen psychability, a lot of movies like that.
Agreed. Yeah.
So I would say, yeah, fear, and misconception. What else is another good misconception? I mean, I guess I'll kind of circle back how we were that some people are gifted. I think that misconception is that only some people are capable, and that's not true. If you have the will to develop, you absolutely can develop psych.
Right. I would agree with that. Yeah. And I think one of the things I would think of like when it's that like, well, one, like you said, like not everyone has a gift. That definitely that's not true. But a lot of times I think one of the misconceptions I have is, or I experience is that, or I've seen is let's say you go to for a reading, you're being told something, which definitely could happen, but the fact that like you're aware of it, you make a different choice, and so it doesn't happen. So so in terms of that, it's like the way I see it is you knew something was going to come, so you changed the timeline. You shifted your abilities. So a lot of times I think that comes with the fact of like not like, oh, they're not always accurate.
Right.
Which I will say we're not 100%. Nobody's ever 100%, right? But I've just noticed, and the way I've done my readings too is I'll always say like, if something's gonna happen, if you go this route, this is one of the probabilities. If you go this route, this is the probability. But a lot of times people, because of the way I think also the media is like portrayed it in movies and stuff, that it's like, oh, this is gonna happen, it's destined. But like we got free will. We can make our own choices. So I think a lot of times that's happened. Granted, there are some big things that will happen one way or the other. It's just sometimes how do we want to receive that?
Totally. Yes. Thank you for saying that too, because I think you touched on another really common misconception, and that would be that receiving a psychic reading is all about predicting the future. And that can come in at times if it's in the client's highest and greatest good. In my session, it really doesn't come through that much. Maybe a little bit here and there, but I'm always holding the intention to bring people into the present because I want people to listen. And so I think oftentimes maybe people who are not very familiar with this work think like, oh, you're a psychic, and I just sit around like predicting people's future all day. And that could be not all of it at all.
Yeah, that's very true. I don't think I've ever given like a psychic reading. I mean, yeah, I've tuned in for people, but it's usually like I'm usually reading their energy and just saying these are things that can happen if you do this choice, or this is how you can help to get from place A to place B. I don't really feel like I've had anyone that's wanted to have like tell me my future. It's more of like what's going on with this situation, which I think is much better because it's more of like a kind of going back to like somewhat of a therapy session. It's more of like how can I shift myself to get to from point A to point B. And that's usually like my friends when they go and get readings from folks if they need guidance. I'm usually like pretty good at saying this is how you should ask the question. This is how you should what questions you should ask, and and don't ask this and that if you don't want to know it. That's the other thing. If you don't want to know, don't ask. Sometimes it comes out if it's needed, but I think there's very, very interesting ways that you can ask, certain questions. And I always say it's all about yourself. It's all how about you can grow and things like that. So that's how I like to give my readings, and that's how I like to receive them as well.
Totally.
So
Yes. And again, thanks for touching on that, because the quality of the question is directly correlated to the quality of the answer. 100%. It's like, okay, kind of get into something general, but well, it can kind of go either ways. But yeah, how the questions are worded can be really important when in getting information.
yeah, exactly. I mean, exactly. Especially if you really want to know something, I always tell them like, should ask this, this, and that, and ask it in this way. Yeah, I get very, very technical. I feel like I'm a professional. I guess what is it? A professional. I don't know how to say that. I get readings a lot, or I used to get readings a lot. So I'm a professional reading getter. I don't know.
Got it.
I'm gonna I'm gonna skip that question. I don't, or that I don't even know how to say that. But I used to get them a lot, so I had to figure out how to ask the proper questions because I wasn't feeling I was getting the right answer. So once I learned that I had to form it in a way to how can I enhance myself in this way, or what can I do to get where I need to be, and how is that going to help my growth and stuff like that. So it's all about growth, all about getting me to the next level and higher vibrations and things like that. So I had to learn. I had to learn a lot of trial and error and anger, like I said, and but then you also have to be receptive to it, because if you're not receptive, you're not going to really go anywhere with that. So
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
yeah. All right. Back to, I think we kind of sidetracked again, which I tend to do, so I apologize about that. But so in terms of like for people, I just actually, this is just probably a simple answer, but I know one thing that tends to happen. That was actually something that I actually had, I guess, misconceptions about when I started. But like in terms of like when someone is actually doing the hard work and trying to develop their abilities, like what would you say is a good time frame for them to get out there and be professional? Like,
Mm.
be,
That's a really well, I'll say from my personal experience, it took off and on pretty, I mean, formal education and clairvoyant development. The first before like I was in school for a year, training almost daily before I was ready to give donation based readings.
mm-hmm.
And prior to me actually joining formal education on it, before I was dabbling, maybe for some friends and family, for myself, kind of just whoever would sit for a session and practice. That's a really good question, and I do think it's there's a lot of variables too. How often are you practicing? How naturally inclined are you?
Yes,
and,
yes.
and really, I think it just comes down to discipline. Is it something that you're committing to on a daily basis? Then you'll develop and be ready to give professional readings much quicker. If you're versus you're like, oh, dabble here there. So it really kind of depends. Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, I don't think I actually really got into it. I will say actually I got pushed into it because I had been taking classes for maybe 2 or 3 years and I was enjoying it, and I only practiced with friends. But I was like, I didn't want to get out there. I was afraid to get out there, put my
Yeah.
face, doing what I'm doing today. 10 years ago, the 10-year ago version of me would have been like, you're freaking crazy. What are you doing?
Yeah. No,
So
you're
it's,
smoke. No way.
yeah,
No, yeah. Absolutely not.
yeah.
Um.
It's I mean, it is hard too to get out there. And then one of the things I realize is I don't like people staring at me when I'm doing my reading. If it's friends, it's one thing, but like to go to a stranger and then have them look and I'm like giving them information. I actually learned through doing these events or like fairs and stuff that I actually don't like that. And so I've now I kind of do a different version of it where I'll still give them readings, but I'm also moving around them and I'm doing some energy work as well. And that my energy is good with. Like I can actually get information. I don't feel intimidated. But there's something also about me moving that I learned. Like if I'm sitting down, I'm gonna have a deck of cards. I'm not reading the cards, but I'm fidgeting with them,
Yeah.
and that's somehow helping me to focus on the reading. So
Yeah.
that's one of the things I just happened to pick up in like the last year and a half, and that totally makes sense. Is there's some energy moving within me when I'm doing it, so I have to kind of move my body.
Totally.
So
I'm the same way. I'll keep a notebook, and sometimes, things that I'm channeling are relevant to the reading. Other times, doing exactly what you just said, of just kind of fidgeting or scribbling, but letting that channel all the way through.
Yeah, and I don't know. It was funny because I learned the movement, physical movement around them, around the person I'm reading and healing. That was, I think that was what, 5 or 6 years ago, before COVID hit, because I was doing fairs, and then COVID hit and I totally stopped everything. But I picked it up again, and I was like, okay, it's the movement. Something about movement is what I learned. And then when I started just sitting down doing readings without any of the energy work, I was like, I was noticing I was doing this with my hands. And I was like, why am I doing this? And so I grabbed a deck of cards, and all of a sudden I'm like shuffling. And then it was funny because it was like, it wasn't the normal Rider-Waite Tarot, but cards would come out and they were like 100% on point with what we were talking about.
Okay.
So I was like, oh, that's really interesting. So then I just showed, like, because it was with friends mostly, and I was like, this is okay. Look, you know what this card means, and then I just get back into it. So
Yeah,
um,
that's
that's
awesome.
yeah. So
It's like channeling through, and then, okay, here, this is your card, and yeah, serves a lot
yeah,
of purpose.
Spirit's like, we just want to confirm that. Yes, that was great. It was actually really funny, but at first I was like, and it was my friend who was like, you keep fidgeting, and I was like, I'm realizing that, and so that now I kind of have like something with me if I'm not going to be moving around people, but. Um, anyway, back to you. So in terms of like helping people to discover their innate excuse me abilities, what specific techniques, is there something that you do, or how do you help someone? If you can give us like highlights, I know it's probably more intensive, but
Sure. Yeah, it's actually quite simple. Well, simple yet challenging, because we're kind of going through a deconditioning process when we're developing psychically.
oh,
And a lot of that work requires us to remove the labels that we've set on everything around us. So, for example, if I'm receiving psychic information about a tree, my frontal cortex is going to be very quick to label that a tree. Oh, it's a tree. I know it's a tree. But through these exercises, we're actually going to start using adjectives instead of labels. So it's like, okay, I'm receiving, I feel something, it's kind of like a brown texture. And there's these little kind of green aspects to it. So we're starting to pick up different attributes of the information we're receiving without labeling it. So, to develop that further, there's exercises that we can do to start training that way and to start thinking and receiving information in that way. That's a big part of this work. And also repetition, discipline, repetition, kind of sharpening that blade, because in our day-to-day existence, we really don't have that much opportunity to use those parts of our brain. Everything around us is kind of pinging the exact opposite of our intuition for the most part.
yeah,
Screen, so much distraction, and just crazy stimuli. So yeah, exercises to tap into our senses, to exercises to receive information in a different way, repetition, and from there, once we kind of, and this is a big one too, learning how to clear our own energy first, because
oh, yes,
that is we have to start from that blank slate, so then we can interpret and understand what's coming in, because we're just like constantly, so much psychic energy is all up in our auras and our electromagnetic field at all times. So that's a big part of this work too, grounding that out, getting our space just to be our space, and then we can begin to understand and interpret the subtleties that are coming into our electromagnetic field to interpret them. um, yeah, I hope that answers your
no,
question.
that does. That was actually kind of answered the next question I was going to ask too, because from what I know, like people who are open or who tend to open their gifts, and this has happened to me too, where you kind of start to feel things around you a little bit more. You start to feel the energies of people around you. I've had some friends who were on BART, and they were a Reiki practitioner, and all of a sudden they start getting hot, and their hands are like, to the touch, their hands feel super warm, and there's someone nearby that's like they're just naturally healing without even trying. So like, is that something that you teach people as well, like how to navigate and I don't know, put up their protections, block other energies from trying to either one, attach them for healing, or two, I don't know if there, any negative energies from trying to, do some harm.
Sure. Yeah. Whew, I will say, I hold the people who have that psychic energy overwhelm very near and dear to my heart. As somebody who opened psychically very spontaneously, I didn't have resources. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know where to go. I didn't know how to handle any of this. So existing in day-to-day life was really a challenge. Like I would have to leave restaurants. I've had to leave concerts. Have to, um, I'm on vacation with my girlfriends and they all had to go and I had to meet up with them later because I had to just stay back. Um, so yes, that is very real. And that's something that's incredibly important. And the number one foundation in what I teach is learning those tools, learning those techniques. So people who are highly sensitive can deploy them at any time throughout their day to day when they need to. Because yes, you will become more sensitive, and there's, like most things, pros and cons to that. But if you're equipped with the proper techniques and tools, then you'll be like, okay, I'm just gonna walk through life empowered, feeling good. But yes, that's very real, and those are the clients that I've really loved helping the most because I can resonate with
Yeah.
that feeling. Yeah.
Yeah, I've had that too, where I'm like walking somewhere, and for me, it happens a lot in the city,
Mm.
where I'll come home and I'll be fine going there, but I'll come home and I'll just feel tired or drained or something, or something's off. So I don't really like big crowds. I mean, I'll go, but now I'm kind of more aware of it. And if I need to step away to the restroom, and I just like, step in a stall and ground and like try to like, keep my energy clear, like I'll do that, and then I come back out and I'm like, oh, okay, great. If I'm in there for 5 minutes grounding, no one's gonna like knock on the door and be like, what are you doing in there?
So
So that's kind of been my little tactic. Whenever I need space, I'll just run to the restroom and do what I need to do to clear out, and then go from there. So um,
yeah.
yeah, and so going on to another question, actually, I was wondering. So kind of on to the day of workshop and stuff. So how would you, let's say you have someone who's a beginner and someone that's a little bit more advanced and in the same class. Like what types of tactics would you do to help them both kind of still get something out of that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think regardless if it's somebody's first time kind of experimenting with their own psychic abilities or if it's somebody who's been practicing and well versed for 10 plus years, fundamentals are forever going to be incredibly important. And I think constantly returning back to the fundamentals, returning back to the foundation, and then building from there is really important. And I think when we go deeper into this work and more well versed and more competent in this work, we kind of forget to go back to the fundamentals sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But really, like where we really sharpen ourselves. And an example I think of is like Michael Jordan. He was one of the most incredible basketball players of all time, and he was constantly practicing free throws, like seemingly the easiest thing. So he knew that returning to the fundamentals would make him a master. So that being said, if somebody's a beginner, if somebody has been doing this 20 plus years, I hope to be able to contribute some new techniques, some new tools and modalities for them, no matter where they are in their own psychic journey, and to offer fundamentals that they can deploy and lean on in their practice.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point, because I think it was this past weekend or in the last couple of weeks, I can't remember, but there was something that came up where I was talking with someone and we were like, you know what, I need to go back to the basics, like back to the basics. And so the fact that you just said that, I was like, ding, 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 because I noticed when I'm doing stuff, I'm like wondering, like if I'm doing a reading or something lately, I'm like, why do I feel like something's off? And it's like, oh wait, I'm not doing these simple things that I need to do, whether it's just like because I think I've gotten so used to it, I'm just like, let me just connect real quickly without like grounding, without, making sure I'm corded or doing what I need to do and put my protections up to do it properly. Because I used to have very, very good process. And then now that I've done it so much, I just kind of, like I said, I was like, it came so natural to me, I just jumped right in. without realizing there's certain things I should still
Oh,
do to, make sure
yes.
I'm keeping myself energetically safe. So I
Yes.
think that's a great point.
Totally. Yep. Yes.
So I know we're kind of almost at our time. I like to keep these around 40 minutes because I feel like that's good enough. But I do have one question that I wanted to ask you. So in terms of your experience, what kind of WTF moment are you hoping that the attendees can either experience during or take away with them?
Yeah, that's a really good question. My biggest intention, one is just for us to have fun and to create a space where like, hey, let's like practice being psychic, just have fun and there's no pressure and we're just going to experiment and this is a safe space and we're just going to like do fun, cool, interesting, fascinating psychic exercises and we're just going to see what happens. That being said, I would love if I can facilitate somebody becoming a little more empowered and a little bit more excited about their own journey of self-awareness and psychic development, that would be awesome. And anything beyond that would be beautiful too. But really, I think it'll be everybody will have their own WTF
Yeah.
moments because you're going to surprise yourself in doing this work, and I think the vast majority of people, no one has ever really sat down and be like, oh, let me practice being psychic today.
Yes.
It's just like there's
Right.
have that opportunity. I certainly never had that opportunity growing up. I always kind of wished I was like Matilda. I loved that movie
Yes.
and I loved Matilda, but that was like, maybe I tried to like bend a spoon sometime. But nothing serious because it just simply there was no offering or it was never talked about. So I digress, but the WTF moments will come,
Yeah.
and I just want to create a space for us to have fun and to see what happens.
Yep, I agree. No, I think everyone will, and I'm remembering my first time. It was like I was in disbelief because it came a lot easier than I thought it was going to come. But it's also, before when I may have tried or something, it was like I just didn't know. But it was also me asking things about myself, so my own ego comes into play, especially when you're not well versed, right, or practiced at all. So I think it'll be a really fun class, and folks will whether whatever levels are at, I think there'll be a lot of fun and will be easier than they think because it's
Yeah.
really once you can just kind of let go of your own fears. And also for me at least, it was also putting my ego away. Like I literally will, if I'm feeling like I'm getting in the way of a reading, even for myself, I will visualize myself and kick my butt to the outside of the house. Like I will visualize myself sitting in the car and I'm like, if you want to be judgmental, that's fine, you sit out there and wait until we're done. And I used to do that. It took me about a year. I would do that for like a year or two. I was doing that because I wasn't allowing myself to receive. And so once I started to do that, it kind of like allowed me to have like, or to receive the messages that I needed to get either for myself or for whoever, excuse me, that I was talking to. So
Okay.
that was something that I learned from a podcast, and I was like, that's such a great idea. And so I started doing it for me.
Oh,
So
that's awesome. I love that. Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of, if people are interested in pursuing this work with the intention of helping and healing others, there's initiations that come with it. And there's definitely a journey and a path and initiations that come with doing this work.
yeah.
And checking your own ego is one of them or can be one of them.
Yeah, I think so. At least for sure for me. And I mean, I will say I have gotten some readings from, folks, and I don't obviously go to them now, but I was like, I don't know if that was correct or that felt a little bit, like it wasn't in the highest good.
Oh,
So I've taken those and I'm like, I'll take the pieces where I was like, okay, that makes sense, but like this felt a little judgmental or this felt a little this. So I've used a lot of discernment when I've gotten readings. And that's why, as we talked about earlier, I go to someone that I trust, and I will try out new ones and stuff, but usually I'm now the type of person where it's by referral,
okay.
or it's by like my vibe, because I'm usually like I said, everything I'm noticing that I'm more in tune with my abilities and than I thought. So sometimes I'll literally, if you ever see me kind of look off to the side, I'm like getting a sense. I'm like, okay, let me see how I feel about this, and I'm like, okay, that feels good, or ooh, I'm gonna pass on that,
Yeah,
so. I kind of do that, and it just comes like so quick to me that I just kind of like follow that gut instinct. And so far, I've been guided to good spaces, and that's what led me here. That's what led us to this conversation. So I think
absolutely.
it's working
Yeah.
out.
It, yeah, yes. And Yeah, the subtleties, things, it does. Psychic energy moves quick, and you really have to have that awareness and to um, be swift, you know,
Yeah.
to be able to take it in. And but there's exercises that we can do to work with that also.
Yeah, no, this it sounds very fun. I'm actually like wondering if I can sneak away, but I know I'll probably be pulled away. I didn't get to do that last time, but maybe off the clock or other in the future we can work together because I always like taking classes, especially when they're interactive, just to kind of learn new skills. And there's still some things that I've taken where I haven't been able to hone in on those. And it's very challenging for me for certain things, but those are not my normal readings or normal things, but it's just things I want to learn or expand, which do help in every kind of work on. So, oh, did I
It
freeze?
froze. I could hear you, but it did freeze for a
Okay,
second. Yeah.
my phone just had an alert, but yeah. So I think we're at time. So I do want to say thank you so much, Demetria, for joining us today. And for everyone else, I look forward to seeing everyone on July 21st at the Spiritual WTF Experience in Walnut Creek at Heather Farms. And if anyone does want to join Demetria's workshop, you can go to spiritualwtf.com and just make sure to select her experience workshop before you check out. And I do also have a $5 off right now on workshops. I believe the code is WTF Vibes. So just put that in. That'll help discount every workshop ticket. So bring your friends.
Yeah.
All right. So
Cool.
thank you very much, Demetria. Again, it was a pleasure talking to you, and I can't wait to see you on the 21st.
Yes. Thanks so much, Erin. I appreciate you, and I'll see you on the 21st.
Thank you very much. Have a great night.
Take
All
care.
right. Bye.